So, Guilherme, here we are again.
Hello, Regards.
Yeah.
How are
Hello.
you
Hi,
today?
Guilherme. I'm fine. I'm okay.
Great.
Here in Spain, we are over the moon. You know that. Okay, Guilherme. Well, you're the purpose of this short video conference, is to kind of test my English. Let's say it
Okay.
that
Get
way.
it?
But you're a Brazilian guy, so people can think, why the hell a Brazilian guy is going to test an Spanish guy, the English level, and and they can think to, why the hell a Brazilian guy is wearing a coat? You can start with the second one, you know.
Okay, because it's winter. I live in São
Yeah.
Paulo, the biggest
Okay.
city in Latin America, and it's very cold today. It's only 6, it's
Yeah.
almost 7 a.m. It's still very cold in São Paulo, so I need a coat.
Okay.
I'll probably take it off in a little while when the sun starts to come in. But at the moment, it's still quite cold in here. Now,
Okay. Yeah.
do
Because
you
you
want
are
me?
in the south hemisphere, so yeah,
That
that's the reason. It's
that
summer
is
here in
right.
Spain, but it's
I
winter
know.
there in Brazil.
In fact, we're quite lucky because winter in Brazil is not really the same winter that you guys would have
Yeah, of course.
in Europe. So
That's right.
it's a lovely day. It will be a lovely day today, but at the moment, I feel more comfortable wearing a coat.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's explained. Okay. And well, the other question was, why the hell a Brazilian guy is going to test uh, my English?
Well,
Explain a little bit of your background. I think,
okay.
yeah, you lived in
Well,
Australia and this.
first of all, yeah, okay. First of all, because you asked me to.
Yeah, yeah.
Doing a favor to a friend. But it's not only that. As you said, I lived in Australia when I was a child. So when I came back to Brazil at the age of 17, I was speaking the language. I didn't stop there because I went to university initially to study languages. So when I finished university, I started teaching in order to make some money. Actually, I started teaching before I began university. I really wanted to make some pocket money. And this was probably coming back to Brazil, the only thing that I could do at the time, which was not even to teach English, to speak English. So I started teaching and I enjoyed it. And I taught English for quite a while. And then I went into psychology and psychoanalysis, but I still keep in touch because I work with lots of teachers. And I also had the chance to go to Europe, to London, more exactly, where I did my MA in language teaching. So I guess I know something about language.
Yeah, so you are kind of a teacher of teachers in English.
Yes, yeah, we call teacher trainer. So what I do today, still, I don't teach students anymore, but I still train teachers to become language teachers. So
Okay, good. And well, why are we talking? Because how long have we been exchanging language? How long? Maybe 2 years or
yes, 2 or 3 years, I
oh, for
think.
3 years. Yeah.
Yes, it's been a
Oh,
while now. And
yeah,
I'm
because
really, the first thing I want to say is I'm really impressed with how much you have progressed over these three
oh
years because I haven't done the same. Thank God we're here to test your English and not to test my Spanish because I
no,
haven't progressed as much as you have.
wow, well, thank you very much. But well, can you remember, talking about this, can you remember my first problems with the pronunciation? Can you remember that? The S and the H sound, and the B and the V sound? Because teachers here, I think, at least in my case, they didn't teach us these important things in the high school or in the primary school. Uh, can you remember that? And
Yes, I remember that you had a much stronger Spanish accent, which
yeah,
is an indication that probably you're doing the sounds that a typical Spanish speaker does, and not the English sounds. I also remember that you were sometimes at a loss for words. You had to think more carefully before you speak, and you are obviously much more fluent now. And these are two very important aspects of speaking.
yeah, of course. And yeah, I realized that the pronunciation was well, was a key in the English learning process, because it isn't the same to say sit, sentarse, that shit, mierda. You can,
Exactly.
yeah, it changes a lot the meaning. So it's important to focus on the pronunciation when you are studying or learning a language.
For some reasons, teachers don't do this very often, especially if they're also self-conscious about their own pronunciation. This is one of the
Yeah,
biggest problems, because if you have a non-native speaker like myself teaching you the language, then this person needs to be self-assured, because if you're talking about a sound that the person himself or herself is not very confident
yeah,
using, then we have a problem. So what teachers tend to do is just simply ignore the bits in the lessons where pronunciation would be key. And if you're not aware of these differences, if nobody tells you, your brain will assimilate, will hear a sound in Spanish and will
yeah.
produce a sound in Spanish. That's why the awareness is key here. You really need somebody to stop and tell you, look, this sound doesn't exist in Spanish, and this is how we pronounce this word in English. The distinction, long and short sounds, doesn't exist. So we need to tell students, sit is one thing, seat is something else. Bitch is one thing, beach is something else. So slowly getting people to become aware of those things.
Yeah, of course. And well, we have talked about this before, and the importance of the exposure to the language, because you know that I'm always listening to English podcasts, reading English books, and and yeah, I think that people tend to think that if you go maybe once or twice to an academy, you are going to learn the language perfectly, and that's not the case, and we know that.
Absolutely. One of the biggest problems is exactly the amount of hours, the number of hours you're going to be exposed to the language. So if you only do 3 hours, it will take you some 10 years or 15 years to get there, right? So if you do what you did, which is to do your homework, go home and watch TV in English, listen, you're being exposed to the language, you're learning a lot more. Even if initially at a more unconscious level, slowly you begin to activate a lot of those words. And this is what you did so well with, uh, with a lot of perseverance but that's what's, I think, amazing about the way you trained yourself to use
Yeah.
the language.
Thank you. And another important key, I think, that it's to uh, take the leap to talk to people, because many times people are embarrassed about making mistakes, so that they aren't going to take that leap. And you have to jump to the water, and we'll see, because everybody makes mistakes when in a process of learning a language. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of mastering a language. Let's say it that way.
Yeah, I
Don't
think
you
some
think?
people are very, yes, I agree 100%. Some people are very self-conscious. So they're afraid of making mistakes. So they forget that the mistakes are part of any learning process. Every time we're trying to learn something new, we're going to make mistakes. And so we have to accept them as part of the process and learn as quickly as possible with the mistakes that we make. But the people also complain about the opportunities for using the language. So this that we do is still new to many people. People don't realize that with the help of technology, they can actually get a friend who speaks the language well, or who lives in another country, and they can do language exchange just like we're doing. But people are not aware of this, so they think it's about going to school. It's about doing what the teacher tells me to do. It's not true. It's about going well beyond what the teacher tells you to do.
Exactly. And I think we've been doing this weekly for 2 years, more or less, so that's the importance of being perseverant and the consistency with the language, because if not, uh, your language will get rusty, and maybe you passed an exam 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, but if you don't practice the language regularly, you are going to lose it. That is another point.
Unfortunately, this is one of the key
Yeah,
issues in relation to language learning. Practice makes perfect. So you have to keep on talking and using the language as much as you can. If not, the language will become, I don't think it will disappear, but it will become dormant. So you'll need to reactivate the language later on. So the best thing we can do about learning a language is to keep on using it as much as we can.
yeah. And as you said, nowadays we have the technology, websites like italki or Skype, and you can do it for free if you really want with people, because my system, I I've been doing this in my free time because I work, because I do have many responsibilities other than obviously learning English. But if you really want, if you go for it, you can learn, you can improve, you can go to the next level if you really want. It's not a question of time, it's a question of your willing.
Yes, I agree 100%. There are many possibilities these days. This, for me, it's one of the best. But like I said, maybe now because of the pandemic, people become more aware of the resources they can use to talk to people in different parts of the world. But we started doing this way before the pandemic was here, because and it was, this technology has been around for about 8 or 9 years. So it surprises me that people are not using it as frequently as they should. I think in general people have a very laid back attitude. It's like, oh, I'll do it some other time. I'll do it next week. This is the worst thing about human beings, procrastinating and doing it
Yeah,
next week. So
always putting things off. Yeah, next week I will be with the energy, I will have more time. Yeah, excuses, excuses.
and next week never comes.
Of course. Of course. Okay, so I don't want to do this very long. So if you had to evaluate or qualificate my evolution in this process, what would you say? What can you say about this?
I think if we use uh, the European way of looking at languages from A1 to C2, you are clearly within the C1, C2 range. This means you're advanced in your level of English. Now, to be able to distinguish between C1 and C2, obviously, there's subtleties, and we'd have to go. I'd need more than 5 minutes to do this. But it is for any teacher who listens to you and talks to you for 5 minutes. We're clearly talking about C1, C2 because of your range of vocabulary.
You've done my day. You've done my day. You know. Okay.
Look,
You're my friend. You're my friend.
No, this is not the case. There's clear intelligibility. The way you speak, the way you express yourself, very clear, very intelligible. The range of vocabulary that you use is incredible, and way the language that you can actually activate, because some people know a lot of words but they don't use them, so it doesn't mean very much. But I noticed, for example, when I said postpone, and then you came and you replied with when we put things off. You use the phrasal verb which corresponds to the verb to postpone. So this kind of knowledge, which is implicit knowledge of the language, is invaluable. And we don't see this in many students, except the ones who've reached C1, C2 levels. So that's my verdict.
I'm
that's
happy. I've passed the test. I was a little bit nervous.
Like the Americans say, you passed the test with flying colors.
Oh, yeah. Good. So, well, I don't want to close this video call, to end this, without listening to you in Spanish, because you've improved a lot. People don't know, of course, your starting point, but nosotros podemos hablar ahora un minutito en español y
solo
también.
Un minutito,
bueno,
porque como dice mi español no es tan bueno cuanto tu inglés. A mí me encanta la lengua española, pero no tengo tanto tiempo para realmente dedicarme. Y también porque en mi caso también hablo portugués y tengo muchos problemas porque las dos lenguas son muy parecidas. Y muchas veces pienso que estoy hablando en español, pero en verdad estoy hablando en portuñol.
Portuñol. No, pero hablas, la verdad es que tu evolución, y lo tengo que decir, ha sido muy, muy buena. Tú sueles leer habitualmente en español.
Sí, claro. Esto
libros, novelas,
lo
te
hago
encanta.
todo el tiempo.
Y bueno, la verdad es que también he visto a lo largo de estos años una evolución muy importante también en ti, la forma de desenvolverte y demás. Y creo que también vas a conseguir un nivel de español.
Sí, un día.
No, eso
en
llegará pronto. Si seguimos así, eso llegará pronto, claro que sí. Así que, bueno, pues nada, despedimos este test, esta pequeña llamada en la que, bueno, pues Guilherme me ha puesto a prueba y, según sus palabras, hemos pasado con nota el examen. Así que podemos decir, Guilherme, que si se quiere, realmente se puede. Que no hay excusas y el que quiera aprender un idioma, incluso sin ir a ninguna academia, también lo puede hacer, ¿verdad?
Totalmente de acuerdo.
Perfecto. Pues nada, despedimos la llamada y a por ello, a estudiar inglés, a estudiar idiomas, todo lo que se pueda, claro que sí.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.